Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
FunBelt Podcast.
FunBelt Podcast.
FunBelt Podcast.
FunBelt Podcast.
It's just a great conference that is at a point right now where they're, I think, clearly the best group of five conference in the country.
The state of Sunbelt football is the strongest in our history.
And we got to continue to showcase what our league's about.
This league is insane.
Yeah, it might be like one of those 8 wonders of the world.
And you can see just what a great group of five conference it really is.
It's a big deal.
Boy, life is looking pretty good in the Sunbelt these days.
Good evening from a Wednesday of the Sunbelt Podcast. I'm sorry, the FunBelt Podcast. This is our first Wednesday recording that we've had in some time, getting back in the football mode. With me is Shane Mettlin of the Daily News Record. Dusty Thibadeaux will be joining us for some of the interviews that we have in store. We've got a really big show today. Let me tell you something, Shane. You know who's on the show today?
I know who's on the show today.
No, you don't.
Several
you gotta
people.
Pretend you don't know. You don't
I gotta
know.
pretend I don't. Okay.
Brand new news to you.
I'll pretend like I wasn't sitting in on some of the interviews.
Today, we all right. On this show, the interviews that we are going to have are going to blow your mind. We start off with Old Dominion's women's soccer head coach, Angie Hind. Old Dominion ranked number 1 in the preseason to totally dominate the Sun Belt. She is on the show, Shane.
Yeah, ODU soccer. It's a pretty big deal right now. They're almost had a big upset in the NCAA tournament last year, and they come in the favorites this year. And plenty to talk about with her.
You know, here's my thing about soccer, Shane, is that me growing up in Arkansas, soccer was considered not just a foreign sport, like something you'd see in England or in Mexico. It was considered a Yankee sport. It was like, that's a sport that happens up north. If you didn't play baseball, if you didn't play football, if you didn't play hoops, you weren't playing any sports. I am so happy to see soccer finally getting a big foothold in the South, and the Sun Belt women's soccer programs really taking off. So I'm really excited to hear from Angie.
I'm the same way. I grew up in rural Kansas, and like you said, it was, football, basketball, baseball, track. Those were your options. And and it's cool. I'm still not an expert on soccer by any means, but no. It's another sport where the college atmosphere is great. Like, you go to some of these games and like the kids on campus get into it, and JMU, the Greek houses sometimes get into the games and organize things. And when there's a ranked team coming to town, it's usually like a really fun atmosphere, even if you're not like a big soccer guy.
Yeah, at Arkansas State, it took a while for that women's team to build and become a competitive team, and it really flew beneath the radar. Last couple of years, they've won a couple regular season Sun Belt titles. We're very excited about soccer at Arkansas State. We've had some very good athletes come through there. So again, having the preseason favorite on the show to shed a little bit of light, that's pretty cool. That's pretty awesome. But following Angie, we have another Sun Belt legend. Do you know who it is? Can you even guess?
I'll let you tell me, because I'm not.
No, you don't know, because
okay.
You have no idea. This guy took over a program that for like maybe 8 seasons never had a winning season. It was probably, I don't want to say this was even before they joined the Sun Belt. It was just not a good program for basketball. Dustin Kerns, head coach for Appalachian State, joins us on the show. Talks a little bit about the revival of Appalachian State football. He talks a little bit about how he engages with the student body, and he discusses his trip to Bermuda and what he learned about his team and maybe ultimately about himself.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing that one. I didn't because I had no clue. No, maybe I had a clue, but I missed the interview. Or maybe that's the truth. But I am looking forward to that one, because Appalachian State basketball, it's been impressive what they've done, considering that was sort of like the ultimate football school for a long time. It's still a great football school, but people are starting to pay a little attention to the basketball program because of what he's done there.
I think that's what helps when you move up a conference, is that there is some ability to you get maybe some extra funding, you get a little extra spotlight, and you're able to focus on some of these other programs. And that's exactly what's happened at Appalachian State. I mean, Appalachian State basketball, that used to be an easy win. Now, they were the 2020 regular season champions. They competed well in 2021. They have that stiff, stifling defense. I hate when the Red Wolves play Appalachian State because the defense is so tough. So I'm really looking forward to that interview. He's a great interview. He was fun to have on. But let me tell you about our last guest. Do you have any idea who it is?
You tell me. I think it's somebody you know pretty well.
You could not possibly guess who our next guest is going to be. This is a sports director for probably the premier news channel in Northeast Arkansas, KAIT Channel 8. He is a sports director. Chris Hudginson is going to join us. We're going to talk Red Wolves. We're going to talk about a team that last year went 2-10. Can this team improve upon that? Chris is on the ground almost every day, checking out practice, interviewing players, checking in on the coach. We're going to find out what he knows. We're going to shake down Chris and find out every piece of knowledge he has in his possession about Arkansas State.
Sounds good. We need to learn about Arkansas State out here. You guys are still a little foreign to us. It's a long ways. Arkansas.
That's so funny. Like ODU, that is my mystery team. I have no idea who they are, where they come from, what they're about. And then I guess you guys way there on the East Coast are like, who are these outliers in the middle of America? Who are these guys? Well, we're going to find out. We're going to learn a little something. So, Shane, speaking of some of the new guys, FunBelt Podcast on our favorite platform, Twitter, put out a poll. And the poll was essentially, let me see how we put it. Which FunBelt newbie will surprise the hell out of us in 2022? And so far, it's been overwhelmingly Southern Miss. Why do you think that is, Shane? Why are the fans thinking Southern Miss is the program that's going to surprise us?
To me, it's because Southern Miss has plenty of room to improve. And they had so much bad luck last year. And, they're high on their young quarterback.
Yeah.
They've got a great running back. Maybe they can be a lot better. I'm not necessarily expecting huge things out of them, but, you look at the other, you're comparing them to the other newbies. Marshall's really only going to surprise if they're bad. Like, if they're pretty good, that's not a surprise.
Uh-huh.
JMU and ODU both could kind of go either way, so nothing's really a surprise with them. So Southern Miss kind of has that like room to surprise compared to some of the other schools, I feel like.
And in a lot of ways, they're kind of in the catbird seat in that, they're new. They didn't have a great season last year. They have a brand new head coach. They're rebuilding on the defense and the offense. They're doing great at recruiting. They don't have to have a good year. They just have to be competent, engage their fans, show some promise, and then they're in like fling.
So, Jeremy, all of our focus on the good old football field as Sunbelt Conference football action begins here in just about a month.
Yeah, it's football season.
It's also football season as the women will be taken to the pitch here sooner than later.
Yes. And you know what? Go ahead.
One of our newcomers, they're already dominating the East because the Old Dominion Monarchs are picked to win the East, hands down, I might add. And so we have Angie Hind on the phone with us to talk about her Monarchs program. Welcome in, Angie.
Hi everyone. Thanks for having me.
Angie, welcome to the program. We love having citizens from the Sun Belt come. You're a new citizen to the Sun Belt. And my first question to you is how does it feel, having been in Conference USA for a while, getting to know those programs, coming to understand how they play and where they're from and what they do. And now you're in a whole new conference having to relearn the whole schedule.
Yeah, in a word, it's a nightmare. No, we just thought everything was going good and we figured it all out, and then now we have a new challenge, but it's an exciting challenge. And in all fairness, we're very excited to join this conference. Certainly any interaction that I've had with anyone from it so far has been completely professional. You know, we know a little bit about some of the teams that we'll be facing. Obviously, you don't know that much until you face them yourself and really get into the scouting a bit. But yeah, we're really excited. Obviously, we had a great year last year, but as myself and our team are very aware, that's history. You know, tomorrow's a mystery, so we have to try and figure it out. You know.
So yeah, you said you had a successful year. You pretty much dominated Conference USA. Then you had this epic game in the NCAA tournament with Duke. Defensive struggle ended up being a 1-0 matchup after not a last minute, but a last couple minute goal from Duke. How does the team get back from that? How's the team come so close to ultimate success? How does it feel to kind of try to bring that success back for 2022?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, but I have to be honest, we're so different this year from last year. And last year was fantastic. You know, it's just one of those moments where everything comes together and, you know, we get to play our way and, you know, we stay healthy. And, you know, I just thought we went from strength to strength, really. We were deep and we were talented. And so everything went well. And then until the last 16 seconds against Duke, it actually was. So,
okay.
But yeah, that was, yeah, you know, we're getting all ready and I don't mind sharing, but I'm on my notepad with about a minute to go and I'm like, right, okay, we're going to go overtime. So they were beginning to really put pressure on us. And I thought, we're not going to do this any longer. We're just going to go for it. So we really were going to line ourselves up and get at them in the first period of overtime and just throw everything that we had at them because our backs were getting a little bit tired, obviously. And I'm writing all up and okay, this is what we're doing. And then they get a free kick and then it hits the back of the net and it's, you know, game over. So it's it's a difficult way to end the season for sure. But I mean, I think the players and everyone around were just so impressed by everything that we achieved. And, you know, Duke are a fantastic team. I have so much respect for Robbie Church and what he does there. So and then we come in this year and we're nothing like we were last year. So that's life as a college coach. Sometimes you got to try and figure out the puzzle every year.
A big part of your team coming back, though, in Casey Perry, she was the Conference USA goalkeeper of the year last year, preseason goalkeeper of the year this year. How big is she as you kind of make this transition into the new league?
Yeah, well, she's 5'10", so there you go. That's how big she is. But yeah, she's important for us. But I have to say, you know, every player that plays for us, you know, we know this and we talk about it all the time that we're a team. And, you know, one player doesn't make us. So we've got a lot of talent. You know, we've got a lot of new guys that we've got to figure some things out as well. But, you know, Casey's done fantastically well. And from where she came from to where she is now is an absolute testament to her character. So it's great to have her back. You know, we actually have 2 other talented keepers. So there's competition and, you know, there's that edge every day. And I think that keeps them fresh. But yeah, we're excited to have Casey. There's no doubt she did some special things last year.
You're bringing over several Conference USA teams with you. What can you tell us about those other teams as they come into the league?
Yeah, I mean, Southern Miss are a very good team. We obviously were fortunate to beat them in the final, and it was a close game. And I have a lot of respect for what Mo does down there because he has a good blend of, you know, internationals and good US players and they play soccer. And I really respect that. So they're a very good program. Obviously, Marshall, you know, they're on the way up. He's had to build a lot there. So I know they've been working hard and I'm sure Michael will have them organized and you know, kind of ready to step up. So I mean, there'll be good teams. They'll add to the conference, I think, but the conference is already strong.
So I was wondering, now that you've gotten into the new conference with the FunBelt, are there certain FunBelt teams that have caught your eye that you're like almost circled the calendar, said we got to beat these people, we got to get those people? Is there anybody that really has caught your attention?
Well, I guess as a side note, we at last have a team in our conference that are in our state, like GMU, which is nice. Our fans down here are screaming for a local rivalry, like North Texas. As much as it might be a rivalry for us on the field, it doesn't resonate the same with our community, So that's one. I mean, I think that's nice, and I'm sure GMU feel the same. It's nice to have that rivalry in conference. Obviously, South Alabama, the two Georgia sides have done very well. So I mean, we're aware of what they've done, but I think until you're able to sit and look at the tools that you have within your own team, and then begin to look at what you're going to face, I think that's really when you figure out what's a good matchup for you and what might be tricky. And that's kind of where we need to get to, when we begin to really analyze these programs.
So I wonder is there any, would you have rather to have come a little bit beneath the radar coming into the new conference rather than immediately being picked as the number one threat to win?
Absolutely. And you can tell by my accent, I'm not from Texas, and in Scotland, we're used to being the underdogs. And so it's funny when I told my dad that, he's like, oh my God, that's the worst. And I'm like, yeah, I know. But, I guess all you can say is it's just respect for what we did last year. Every year's really different. So we're not putting too much weight into it. And I know we honestly haven't even talked about it with the team. So that's how much we really carry that. It's just a mark of respect, I think, for what we did last year. We don't see it as anything else. But yeah, I don't know how I felt when I seen that. I'm like, nah, that's not my style at all.
Oh, come on, Coach. I mean, you voted in the poll. Surely you voted for yourself there on the East.
No, not at all. Not at all. We never do that.
Oh, that's crazy. Shane, you got anything?
Yeah, I guess, you talked about the JMU rivalry a little bit, people being excited about that. They were picked right behind you in the East. What do you kind of expect from that rivalry and the competition when you meet them on the field?
Yeah, well, we played them twice in the spring and twice they beat us. So I think we had an early look at that. And I think they're a soccer playing team, and I can't state that enough. I think that's one of the things that I hope this conference will give us a little bit more of. We had a lot of programs that we competed against in Conference USA that were pretty direct, and we want to play. So I think GMU and us want to do similar things, and I think it'll be a real good game of soccer, I have to say, and good players on show, and that's what we expect. Maybe a little bit strategic, maybe a little bit more tactical in some games. But yeah, I mean, I always have a big amount of respect for coaches that want their teams to play. It's just everyone has their own style and their philosophy, and I just tend to hold those programs a little bit higher in regard, and I know that GMU will be one that will be a good soccer game for sure.
Yeah, shit, I'm really pumped for what the FunBelt has done, restructuring, or not restructuring, just structuring in general, the conference, putting together these sort of regional rivalries. And our focus has been football, but really it's with every single sport. And to see JMU and Old Dominion sort of on the top in the East, automatically right away being contenders is pretty cool.
Yeah, they've only played twice in football, so that rivalry isn't quite as deep as it goes back in other sports where, it's really every other sport where, talk about women's basketball or field hockey, or, it's going to be great on the soccer pitch too this year. I don't know if that's the way that everybody feels in Norfolk, but, in Harrisonburg, people are really looking forward to year round when it comes to ODU.
Yeah, of course. You're right. I mean, it's you want to get your community excited, and nothing gets your community and fan base, which we happen to have a lot of, more excited than coming to see a local game. There's no doubt about it.
Coach, thanks for being on the show. We really appreciate you taking the time, giving us a little education on ODU. I know that, the Sun Belt's new to you, but Old Dominion's new to us. So it's great to have you on board and give us a bit of inside knowledge. And we wish you the best of luck in that very competitive Eastern Division.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure. It's been nice to talk to you guys. Thank you.
Jeremy, in football, defense wins championships.
Absolutely.
And while it hasn't yet led to a title, well, actually it did in 2020, but we always put the asterisk on that season. Defense wins championships at basketball as well. And when you think of defensive basketball, what school do you think
of? Defensive basketball, Princeton. I think of Princeton sometimes.
No, that would be the Princeton offense, not the Princeton defense that they're known for.
Okay. I guess the only other school that I can think of when it comes to like hard-nosed, under the basket, smothering defense, it might be Appalachian State.
That is correct. I agree wholeheartedly with that. And the man that leads that Mountaineers coming into his 4th season.
Is he here?
Dustin Kerns joins us to talk about that Mountaineer defense as well as the upcoming program. Welcome in there, Coach.
Well, thanks, guys, for having me. It's great to be here. All off season, we've been trying to shift the narrative here. We're spending all off season on offense. I want to be about offense now. We're just trying to score. We're not going to guard anybody.
We were just talking to your SID, and I know I'm jumping the ship a little bit, Tibbs, but during your trip to the Bahamas, your SID made a stunning revelation to us. 111 points in one of the games.
Well, I tell you what happened. FIBA rules, 24-second shot clock helped that. You got a lot more possessions, and certainly we made some shots. I mean, I'm a lot better coach when those shots go in.
Aren't we all? But Coach, on that note, I mean, you got to replace your leading scorer from last year. I know that we always talk about Mountaineer defense, but Adrian Delph was really the man last year, averaging about 17 points. How do you kind of go about adjusting that offense for this upcoming season?
Yeah, good question. I think that we had a lot of good scores in Delph and Almonacy and in Forest as well, 4,000 points and 2,000 points, so over 4,000 combined. But I think that's probably just the nature of college athletics. I think that we're all each year going to be faced with new identities, new teams, and our job as coaches are to figure those out, what's best for this team. And certainly we got an opportunity to go to the Bahamas, which helped, with 7 new guys and just, trying to mesh some things together and figure out this team. But, we lost some really good pieces, but I think that, hopefully we're in a situation, our program where we can, just continue to build on what we have here.
A big guy from last year that does return, though, Donovan Gregg, averaged about 11 points last year. Do you see him kind of stepping up into that senior leadership role, or do you feel that there's some other guys that are maybe going to push him out of the way for that role?
No, certainly we feel that with Donovan. Donovan is a Swiss Army knife. He kind of provides like a Draymond Green type role for us. He's a playmaker. He had led us an assist. And so like he's just does a little bit of everything. He had a stat line a couple of years ago. I think he had 12 rebounds, 8 steals, and 9 assists. I mean, he almost had a triple double without points, which is unbelievable. And but obviously he's a guy that's been in our program now going on his 4th year. He's got a chance to be one of our all-time winningest players, even with some shortened seasons. And so he won state championships in high school. He's just the guy that impacts winning, and so certainly that would help with being the leader as well.
One of my favorite coaches of all time was Mike McConley at Northwestern State in Louisiana. You got one of his prized possessions there of Carvel Teasley when he retired. What does he bring to the table with that kind of D1 experience coming in? knowing that you have to replace so many pieces?
You know what? And ironically, Carvel was, Adrian Delph, we supported him through the NBA draft process and then sort of threw us a curveball there at the end and decided to stay in the draft, which we want that for all of our players. We want to help them pursue their dreams. And Adrian is a phenomenal kid and was a phenomenal player here and gave us 4 years. And so we worked with him. However, I'm saying that in a sense, like that's where we found Carvel. All right, we need to go out and identify a guy that can really make shots. Carvel is a guy that is a high level shot maker. Fortunately, he was still available. I think he averaged 13 a game there at Northwestern State. And so that's where we found Carvel is we need to go out and get another guard that can make shots. And certainly Carvel can do that.
All these pieces coming together. Y'all recently took a road trip to the Bahamas. Jeremy, he didn't invite us. Do we keep talking to him when he didn't invite us?
You know what? Here's the thing. We were hoping we would get invited. We even packed some bags. We had some. We didn't buy tickets because we wanted those tickets comped. The invitation never came. I've gotten over it. I don't know if you have, Dusty.
Coach, I'm a little pissy. I needed the sun. Anyway, Coach, you went to the Bahamas. You look great there, nice and bronzed, but put in some work there in the gym. How was that road trip there to kind of figure out what your team's going to look like whenever you break camp?
Well, I'm gonna blame it on Peyton. Peyton was supposed to invite you guys. We had some beer ready for you. Some rum cake. We had some things like that ready for you. Some conch fritters. But I'll blame. Somehow that invitation got lost, but we did send it. This is something the NCAA allows you to do, every 5 years. And this is a trip, ironically, that was supposed to happen a couple of years ago that kept getting pushed back. And it actually ended up getting pushed back for probably the best for us, having so many new players. Tremendous experience. We gave a clinic for kids on Harbor Island. Obviously, you get the team bonding out of it. And then you also get the game experience. And what I love is the 10 practices to kind of experiment with some things. Obviously, you're playing FIBA rules, so it's 24-second shot clock. There's some different things there. But it allows you as a coach with new guys to kind of maybe tweak some things, look at some things, look at some different lineups. And so, it was really, really good in the sense of the practices, the bonding. Certainly we won the games, but it really wasn't about the games as much as, the experience together and just getting on the court in an earlier time. Typically we don't start that early, but to be able to get those 10 practices and to kind of go against somebody else with officials and things like that was really, really beneficial.
I know the Bahamas isn't known for its basketball, but did you see anybody from the opposing team that you thought, man, this guy could really do something at Appalachian State?
Well, we didn't evaluate it that hard, other than we did play against some former college players that are still playing professionally. And so there were some good players and some older guys, and we played against some grown men there. One of the guys he played Division I basketball, and he told me after the game that he's going on year 17 as a pro. And I think he even played on their Olympic team. I know he had on Rio 2016 shirt before the game. And so we were able to play against some athletic, big grown men. And so we were able to get some things out of it. And then obviously playing 24-second shot clock's different, but I kind of liked it. I kind of liked the extra possessions and the quicker possessions, and it was good. Really, really great experience. Once again, we were the second Division I team to ever give a clinic for the kids on Harbor Island, and so we spent an hour with the kids. We gave them App State T-shirts, and first team in I think 5 years. So these kids, there's only 2,600 people that live on that island, only 500 kids. And so I know if there's a future player on that island one day, I know which schools he's going to call first, right? Where he's got that App State T-shirt. But just a great experience, gives our guys some perspective. Dusty, Jeremy, it was a great experience in the sense like our guys got to see like those kids can't play basketball unless it's sun out. They don't have a gym. And it's an outdoor court. And so like it's just great perspective, that like even simple as cold water sometimes our guys take for granted. And so like especially playing indoors. And so great perspective, great experience. And we're very, very fortunate and thankful for, our chancellor and athletic director for allowing us opportunity to go.
So with all the talk of the players, the team, you also got a new coach this year and a former player, Tevin Baskin, coming back. What does he add to the mix coming with that SEC experience being at Mississippi State?
Yeah, Tevin's been great. I had the same size of staff that we came with for Presbyterian. And it was just something off season like, hey, we just need some more people. And I think from a comparative Sunbelt staffs, we were at probably the bottom as far as size wise. And so thankful for athletic director and chancellor for approving a new position. And so now we've got a new full-time coach, Tevin Baskin, played here, graduated here. So does his fiance, went to school here. And so having a former player back on staff is a big deal. Now they can sit in recruiting meetings and say, listen, I came to school here. I loved it here. You can relate with the players. Hey, I've been through it. I stayed in that dorm, et cetera. And so that was important for me to identify someone as we were able to create a new position that was a fit for us and what we were trying to do at App State. He had great experiences at Mississippi State. And so, hiring a guy from the SEC and just bringing some new ideas and new perspectives has been really good as well.
One thing that I really took note last year, I didn't take note before, was your interaction with the fan base when you have games at Appalachian State. They just seem that seems like that Appalachian State truly does have a six man on the court when you play home games in Boone. How did you develop that rapport with the fans?
That's a great question. I just think engagement's important. I think we all as coaches talk about, getting the students and, coming to the games, and we need this great crowd. But it just takes more than just saying that. Like, you just can't say, hey, listen, we got a game tonight, come to the game. I think there's got to be, real true engagement. And I've been on campus speaking to these kids and going out and, my first year I took a microphone in the cafeteria and was stood on a table. And I just think you got to be a little crazy. You got to be a little outside the box. It just can't be about putting a sign up outside that says game tonight. And so like today, like relationships, like going and spending time with the fraternities and the sororities and things like that. And so I've actually got to know some of them. Like, I know their names.
Nice.
And so like, once again, like, I've tried to not let it be a facade. Like, hey, listen, we're going to truly immerse ourselves in this. And I went and I showed them film. I went and I met with these students groups and I showed them film of other, I'm not going to mention who, of other basketball student section crazy people, and how it's really developed a brand, and how sometimes you think about a school associated with their student section, and how that they had an opportunity to change the narrative here. Because when we got here, there was no student section. And that's not a disrespect or anything. It's just the facts, right? There was. And so I showed them that and said, like, hey, you've got a chance to change the narrative. Like, you've got a chance to kind of be the pioneers of creating this new environment with App State basketball, and maybe getting a name that carries on, and somebody labels you guys as this group of, Mountaineers Menace or whatever it may be. You've got a chance to kind of create something of your own and your own little brand. And they, they embraced it. And so therefore, in return, I go back each game and embrace them because it has been a big difference. It has been. And
you know what?
I've had opposing coaches say, man, we used to come up to App State and now it's different. Like, in a sense, from an atmosphere, from a student section. And when opposing coaches have gone to a press conference or something and talked about our student section, we send that to them and they look what you did. And so it's just something that I just felt like, as we were trying to change the perception of 8 straight losing seasons when I got here, flush out a lot of just a different mentality. You gotta kind of rally the troops and really put the feet on the ground. Like I said, you can't just be a tweet, hey, come to the game tonight. I just don't think that really works. But getting up on campus and going around speaking to people and then truly engaging them, I think has really been the true goal.
How far will you go though to get these students? Are you willing to strap on the uniform and coach a game in uniform?
God.
I mean, baseball coaches do it. So
yeah, I haven't had that idea presented to me. However, if you look back last year at a football game, I put on overalls and I got in the student section at the football game. You could go back and look, and the kids loved it. I mean, I'm right there, front row football game with my yellow overalls on, and hanging out the football game. And I did do that. That did present that was an idea presented to me that I did do. I have not been presented with an idea to coach in a basketball uniform.
Well, we'll pass along the specs to that idea to Peyton, and maybe he can go ahead and work something up for you. But you know what's the one thing that really drives the students, that really gets them out, is winning. And you guys have been doing that for the last few seasons, and it's been great for Appalachian State. But on the whole, for the Sun Belt has struggled a little bit with basketball. The baseball has done very well. Football has done very well. Sun Belt's still trying to find its footing. What do you think the Sun Belt needs to do to make that next step, to make that leap to what you had said earlier about having 2 teams in the NCAA tournament?
Jeremy, I think it's just in my opinion, and I'm not saying I'm right. I just think in basketball, we've got to get more visibility on television. I think that one thing that football has done a tremendous job of is every single week we're on ESPN. Absolutely. On a Wednesday night, a Thursday night, a Tuesday night, and that's powerful. And it's national, and it's really helped recruiting. It's helped the visibility. It's helped us help the league. And so how many times on an ESPNU have you seen South Alabama at Georgia State basketball?
About 0. I think 0 might be.
And I'm not saying that as a I don't want that to be as a negative to the league. I'm just saying, like, we've got to get more games on television. And I think that if our league can get more visibility, because a Louisiana and Troy, a Coastal Carolina and Georgia Southern, like Marshall and Old, like, those are great games. Whether it's CBS College Sports, was ESPNU, but once again, our football has been on ESPN2, ESPN. I mean, it is the mothership, right? And so, like, that has helped recruiting. It's helped people talking about the Sun Belt, which helps. And so now, if you've got, Texas State, versus an Arkansas State on ESPNU, you might have a Fran Fraschilla talking about it. Now it's in the studio, and that helps recruiting. That helps everything, right? But I just don't think, I think we've got a great league. I mean, holy smokes. The last thing I want to do right now is think about Sun Belt basketball, because it makes my stomach hurt. It makes my heart burn. Like, this is one of the most competitive leagues in the country. In fact, if you look at it statistically, I know 2 years ago, we were the 3rd most competitive league out of 32, which means there's more close games. There's only 2 more leagues where there's more close games in the country. And so, like, it's not a fun league to coach in. But my point is, there's exciting games. Like, there are great games, but people aren't watching them. And yes, ESPN Plus is great, but I just think like if somehow our league could get maybe 10 to 12, whether it's a Thursday night ESPNU game, I definitely, without question, think that our league would grow. And now we're getting more visibility. Now we're getting better recruits. Now we're getting more people talking about Sunbelt basketball because Sunbelt football is on ESPN all the time. And that's just my opinion. I think we've got to get on TV more. Whatever we've got to do to get on TV, whether it's play on Friday nights, whether it's, I don't know the answer, right? And that's not a criticism to anybody. I'm just saying that's my opinion. Our league's got to get on TV more.
You know, Coach Kerns, I think you kind of touched on it. One of the things the Sun Belt has done really well in the last couple, especially in terms of this realignment and getting new teams in, is that they've really focused on rivalry. And I think rivalry is something that really gets fans in the seats, but also potentially moves us to that ESPNU or ESPN time slot that you really want. What do you think of the new programs that have come in terms of rivalry? What does that do for Appalachian State?
Oh, I think it does a lot for everybody. But I mean, think about James Madison, Old Dominion. Those are two great programs, two great coaches. Us and Marshall, which is a long between our fan bases, and being in the Southern Conference together. Now we're back in the Sun Belt together. Like, think about Marshall and App State on a Thursday night, ESPNU, or like a James Madison, Old Dominion, or an Old Dominion, Coastal Carolina, or Georgia Southern Georgia State. Like, I could keep going. South Al Troy. Texas State, Louisiana, Monroe and Arkansas, like I could keep going, right? Southern Miss now, I just think that there is incredible opportunity, like you say, I think it'll help all of our attendance too. I just think like now we've got some more regional teams our fans are a little bit more familiar with, that it's going to help our attendance. And, I remember being at the App State Marshall football game last year, and they were not in the Sun Belt, and it was electric. It was incredible because, wow, Marshall and App State are playing again. Well, now we're going to get to see that every year. And so I think that can be a trickle down into basketball. And I just think that we've got an opportunity. We've got a window here, and hopefully we can get on TV more.
So it seems like the biggest thing, though, for basketball to really propel themselves, you got to win the games. You have a pretty tough non-conference schedule there, going to Louisville, to Charlotte, and to Wake Forest. Is that a schedule that you like, or is it one that you feel that you need to play to be able to compete in?
I thought we were going to talk about land in the sun, the Bahamas games, the scoring 111 points. Now you got me having anxiety thinking about Louisville and Wake Forest and all these other teams that I don't really want to play.
Yes.
You know what? I just think it's the pool we're swimming in. And I just think that we always want to play a great competitive non-conference schedule. Last season, we played the 26th toughest non-conference schedule. It was the hardest non-conference schedule in the Sun Belt. But like, it prepared us for the league. And when we finished second. But this year, I just think you've got to know your team. We've got a lot of new faces. It's like a freshman moving in right now. They don't need to be put in AP biology and calculus, right? I just think like we've got new guys. Like there was some, opportunities that presented themselves regionally that we're always going to play Charlotte. We've renewed it with East Tennessee State, which is always a tremendous program, a well-coached program. And then Charlotte is done well. And so, those are games that really make sense for us. App State and Wake Forest hasn't played since 2005. Correct me if I'm wrong. I give that credit to Steve Forbes. They reached out and we got an opportunity to go down to Winston-Salem, which will be just great in this area. We got invited to play in Phoenix, Arizona. And so just trying to keep raising the profile of App State basketball. How do you do that? One of the ways you do it is you play in big games on national television. And you can't win those games unless you play them. And so that's the philosophy about it too. Like going to Louisville, that's one of the most storied programs in the country. Well, you can't beat Louisville unless you play them. And so like we're going to always go play those sort of games and try to raise the profile of our program and get on TV. Like we're going to Phoenix and playing in the Jerry Colangelo Classic in an NBA arena. So now I can go to recruiting and be like, hey, we're playing in NBA arenas on neutral site TV type games. And so, just trying to keep using these opportunities to raise the profile of our program and be visible, TV opportunities. But it's another really, really tough, challenging schedule. It is the most home games in program history. And that's been a lot of hard work for the staff in the sense, like, I think many people don't realize just how hard it is for the Sunbelt teams to get home games, because some of us are landlocked. Some of us are not in easy, accessible areas. And so when you're dealing with other teams trying to travel and come play, that's a factor. Well, it's a hard place to get, And so, like, I think we all kind of experience that to that extent. And I think we're all good. Like, listen, this league, there's 14 really good teams, and there's 14 really good coaches. And I just think that we're not a league and level that people are just kind of seeking out and playing. And so I just think we're swimming in a new pool as a league, scheduling wise. But also, I'm, excited about just, where our league's going. I think our league is moving in the right direction from a basketball standpoint for sure.
I leave you with the word of warning there, Coach. I saw that you have Campbell. The Fight Camels were undefeated against the Sunbelt last year. It's up to you.
You've got to restore our dignity.
I didn't want to hear that statistic.
but all the games were in Macon, so you'll be the first to host them.
Well, they do a great job. We're fortunate to host our own little MTE up here, and shoot, Campbell does a really good job. We've got Kennesaw State returns like 85% of their scoring, and then Southeast Louisiana, comes up, and they were in the postseason last year and really played South Alabama in the postseason. So, like, there's some really good opportunities for us. We've got North Carolina, we got Furman, who we picked to win the league, and so. Really, really good, tough, challenging non-conference season. But I'm trying to just enjoy my week here and catch up on some things. And instead, now I've got heartburn. Now I've got to have to go down to the training room here, and I've got a headache, and because I'm now starting to think about that non-conference schedule in the Sunbelt League.
Well, we'll send you a tube of FunBelt podcast branded Tums, and then you can move on.
I'm gonna need those. Thank you.
Most podcasts have T-shirts, Huggies. We have Tums.
I greatly appreciate it.
Coach, we thank you so much for joining us. Always a fun time. Looking forward to seeing you sometime during this season to catch up, and then hopefully down in Pensacola as well.
Well, thanks for having me on. I want to say this, Dusty, Jeremy, like, thanks to you all. Like, when we talk about promoting the Sunbelt, it takes an army, it takes a group of people, it takes a village. And a lot of times now, some of the best talk and visibility is through social media or podcast to engage fans. And so, your podcast or Twitter or things like that, or social media, gains followers, things like that. Well, that just helps the conference. And so, like, thanks for y'all for doing this, promoting the league and engaging and getting people excited. And I just think, like, you talk about, like, what can help, like, you guys are helping it, and now we just got to keep getting more stuff like this, and then all of a sudden, like, you get the SEC network and all that, like, all that stuff started with guys like yourself, and it just kind of evolved into, holy smokes, we got so much attention for this, let's start our own network. Well, now that's really a big thing. So, like, thanks to you guys, always a pleasure, and whatever you need me to do, let us know up here on the mountain.
He called me the fine bomb of the Fun Belt. I love it.
So, Shade, we talked a little bit about Chris Hudginson, athletic guy at KAIT Channel 8. And guess who's in the green room right now?
Could it be Chris?
It is absolutely Chris. He is here. He is on the road doing what he does best, which is going from one high school to another in Northeast Arkansas, interviewing coaches and players, getting ready for the big high school preview. Chris, how are you?
I'm good. I'm relieved now because I finally finished all our high school previews after about 2.5 and 3 weeks of driving to all points in between in Northeast Arkansas. So I'm relieved. I'm happy we got at least all the high school previews done, and now I can kind of shift my attention back to Arkansas State sports.
So, honest question, how many speeding tickets have you collected during these trips?
Nil. Cruise control has been my best friend, and thankfully I go to a lot of schools that I've been to over the years, so I kind of know where all the speed traps are, so I really don't have to worry about it as much. It's like, okay, this fascinating stretch of Highway 18, just go, make sure you don't go over 70 and you're okay.
And here's the thing, if a cop pulls over Chris Hudginson, all you have to say is, you know who I am? I'm Chris Hudg. I can ruin you in this.
I wish I could do that, but yeah, I'm just here so I don't get fined. So I'm just here doing my job. I was like, yeah, let me make sure I don't get pulled over, because like I want to at least kind of keep up appearances and at least kind of get to these destinations in a somewhat reasonable amount of time.
All right, Chris. Well, then let's get on the brass tacks here. Let's talk a little bit about why we're here. We're going to talk a little bit about the Red Wolves. The Red Wolves went 2-10 last season under new head coach Butch Jones. You saw a lot of the games. You saw a lot of the practices. You conducted a lot of the interviews. You know how things worked last season. How do you think the team is different this year than it was last, if at all?
There's a little bit more depth on both sides of the ball. I think that was one of the things Coach Jones harped about all last year. And at first when he said it, it was like competitive depth. And you're kind of thinking when he said it, it's going through one ear, out the other. But then you're kind of seeing it in play, in action on the field, and then you're kind of seeing exactly what he's talking about, where there was not a lot of competitive depth on both sides of the ball, where if anybody got hurt from the ones, the twos and threes, there were a lot of questions there, and you weren't really sure what you would have. So now you're having a lot of more depth. The best case example is the running back room, where a couple years ago, Marcel Murray was an all FunBelt running back before his injury troubles.
Yeah.
Now he's probably the number 3 running back in that room right now, because you have Brian Sneed coming in from Austin Peay and Ohio State. You have Johnny Lang in that rotation. He's probably going to be the return specialist for the Red Wolves. And then you have Marcel Murray, where a couple years ago, he's one of the best running backs as a freshman in the conference, and now he's fighting for minutes. So if you're seeing well-established guys fighting for minutes, there's a great sign. There's a whole lot more depth for the Red Wolves now compared to a year ago.
Yeah, and I agree. There's a lot of depth in running back, and there's pretty good depth at wide receiver, although not a lot of height. And there's fairly good depth at quarterback. But where do you see A-State maybe not having the depth that it needs?
Honestly, the biggest question I want to see is the offensive line, because we know there's some guys there like McKeelan Thomas, who played right away as a true freshman. He's going to get plenty of minutes in that line. You've got Ethan Minor that's going to get plenty of minutes on the offensive line, but it's who are the rest of the guys? Like, I know you have Jordan Rhodes there coming in from Ole Miss, who's probably going to play right away, but besides that, I have no idea who that rest of that starting 5 is going to be, and if not just that, 6 through 10. So that's going to be my big question going into the year is, okay, do you have your 10 guys on offensive line? Because ideally you want to rotate. You don't want to play that same start 5 all year. And let's be realistic, just with amounts of physicality involved, you're not going to have that same starting 5 from game 1 to game 12, and hopefully in the case of Arkansas State's case, a game 13.
Did we lose? Oh, wait, there you are. I think we got you back.
Hello. Hey, I can hear you now. I'm sorry.
I think you rolled over under a bridge or something. We got most of that. All of a sudden, you just got cut off. Hey, Chris, so that's what worries me the most about that Ohio State game. Is not that we're going to get beat, which there's a 99.9% chance that we're going to get beat. It's that we're going to get hurt, and it's going to happen on the offensive line. What do you think about that?
Okay. I guess my big 2 things in that game is, one, be as competitive for as long as possible, and number two, make sure nobody gets hurt. Where it kind of takes me back a little bit to last year when A-State had to go to Washington early on in the season, and it was just a rough 4 quarters, all 3 phases. So the big thing I just want to see coming out of that Ohio State game is, one, be as competitive as possible. It kind of shows folks, hey, now granted, the scoreboard may not be the most optimal thing in the world, but can you show enough there against a number 2 team in the country to kind of show some positivity moving forward?
So you discussed enhancing the depths so much from one year to the next. How did they go about doing that? I know it's a young team. Is this freshmen that are going to be right in the mix in the 2 deep, or is there a lot of transfer portal going on there? How'd they get to where they are right now?
The transfer portal, I think, has been Butch Jones's best friend since he arrived here at Arkansas State, where I think this season alone, even just coming out of spring ball, I think they added about 14 guys from the transfer portal, and that's a mix of some Power 5 guys, a mix of G5 guys, and just guys from all over the place. So you blend that with the most successful recruiting class in program history coming in, and so that's been the cause of so much optimism. I'll just say it point blank period. I've never seen so much optimism coming out of a 2-win football program as I've ever seen with this group of Arkansas State, with the fan base and the vibe from the coaching staff and the players. Usually if you see a 2-win team, you're coming back and you're thinking, okay, can we at least get to 3-4? I would make a reasonable case that Arkansas State can get to 6 wins this year. It's reasonable.
Well, and the schedule makes it reasonable. I mean, A-State avoids a lot of the heavy hitters in the East, like Coastal Carolina and Appalachian State and Georgia State. So there is a lot of opportunity for Arkansas State to pick up some wins and to get back to that 6-game threshold. Chris, is there anybody on the practice field right now that you and Logan, your partner in crime, have seen that has raised an eyebrow from you?
I would say Champ Flemings, just coming out of the transfer portal, and we saw his game tape a little bit from looking at some Oregon State games, but you really weren't sure how he would blend in and mix in right away. And just seeing how many ways that you could be able to utilize Champ adds like another dimension to the offense, where last year A-State was a very one-dimensional team. They couldn't really run the ball effectively, so it was just all passing game all the time, and it was feast or famine. Where Feast, they were top 20 in the nation passing offense. Famine, they were bottom 5 in the nation in rushing. So adding a Champ Fleming there, he can kind of get things there, adding another rushing element there. So that's something else there to watch offensively. And then defensively, moving Kevon Bennett kind of one level over to linebacker has been fascinating to watch, just to see him kind of progress with that group. You have Jordan Carmouche now in that linebacker room who came over from Houston. Just to see that element has been interesting to watch so far in camp.
You talked about the optimism coming off a 2-2 season. Are Arkansas State fans all in on Butch Jones right now? I know, when you hire a big name like that, and then the first year is a little bit of a struggle, maybe sometimes people will jump off the bandwagon, but it seems like that's maybe not the case there.
That's been another interesting case about this, because like you see it and I see it on Twitter, but anything Butch Jones, you're going to have the Tennessee element come out to play. And for all intents and purposes, for folks that don't know, I am a Tennessee fan covering Butch Jones. So that's been pretty fascinating. And I was one of the few Tennessee fans that was happy with how Butch Jones performed at Tennessee, because he won, he developed players. Now, there were players that didn't pan out the way we thought, but for the most part, he performed well considering who has been there after him and who's been there before him. So anytime we post anything Butch Jones related, we get a mix of Tennessee fans just mad because they're still mad, and then a mix of A-State fans happy because there's optimism. And it's weird because, especially this time period where you see so many coaches and so many players talk about the process, that it's kind of come numb to a lot of folks. In the case of Arkansas State fans, they have bought into the process, all in on it. So them knowing when Butch showed up that this was going to be a 3 to 5 year job of building the roster back up and to be back to a point where you're competing not just for bowl bids, but competing for Sun Belt Division titles. So that's been the really fascinating case about this, where, Coach said at the very beginning where this is going to be a process of building this, and the fan base, to their credit, has understood it. Now, I don't think they expected a 2-win year one, but you saw enough there where it's like, okay, you have a quarterback, you have James Blackman, okay, you have guys on defense that can play. Now it's a matter of, can you not get run off the field, and can you essentially build an offensive line, build a defense where you can now be in a whole lot more games? Because everybody looks at the schedule and you're looking at, okay, they won 2 games. There were several games that they should have won last year. And the biggest one I have circled was the Memphis game last year.
Yeah.
If it was the defense from the final 4 or 5 games of last year, if it was that defense playing that night against Memphis, they would have won that game.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have that Memphis game circled. And you're right, Chris. I think most Arkansas State fans knew what was happening with that roster that last few years under Anderson, saw that the size was going away, that the speed was going away, and that when Butch Jones came, he had a big job to do. And yeah, I think a lot of people didn't want to see a 2-10 record, but the 2-10 record is a price you pay for building up a program again. I think most people see that hope in Butch Jones. I do have kind of a professional question for you. I'm going to put you on the spot, Hudg.
I don't know if I've called myself a professional, but okay.
Well, you've been covering the Red Wolves forever, longer than I can even remember. Of all the coaches that have come through the last 10, 12 years, who is the most entertaining interview? Come on.
I would say the most entertaining. I would honestly say Freeze, because you really wasn't sure what he would like. It was a little bit of Freeze and a little bit of Anderson, where I would ask a question and I have no idea where the answer is going. I know I'm going to get something, but I have no idea the map we're going to weave to get to the end of that question. I have no idea. I would say it would generally be a tie between Freeze and Anderson. Will be between both of them. Both of them were absolutely fascinating in a press conference setting because they were essentially an open book. Butch Jones has been the same way as well, but Anderson and Freeze were definitely as open book as it could get.
I think the difference with Butch Jones, and I don't even think he would dispute this because I think he wears it like an armor. He's just so entrenched in coach speak, the 110%. One day at a time kind of guy. It's sometimes hard to penetrate that, but sometimes I really think he believes it too.
It is. And a lot of it helped, being a Tennessee fan and watching his press conferences over the years. So the first couple ones he had here at Arkansas State, I'm like, okay, he's saying a lot of the same stuff, but on the flip side, he really believes that, like, that's really him, where he is so laser focused. I think that's one of the most interesting differences between Butch Jones at Tennessee and Butch Jones at Arkansas State is he spent enough time at Alabama and understanding how the process truly works. Like we say that adage, how the sausage was made, he kind of saw how the sausage was made at Alabama and how the process really works, that he's kind of combined elements of that. So yes, it's coach speak, but if you kind of delve a little bit further, there's a whole lot of elements at Alabama that he's talking about that he's trying to develop here at Arkansas State and build there. So it's a blend of coach speak and Saban is how to describe Butch Jones talking on the mic.
Shane?
Nope.
Okay, so we got I'll give you a 30,000 foot question. You were at Sunbelt Media Days. You mingled with everybody who was there. You got a feel of something.
And you too.
Yeah, I mingled. Mostly I was nursing a hangover, but I mingled. No, but I was wondering what was your thought on the newbies, especially guys. I know there's 3 in the East, only 1 in the West. We're primarily you and I are really kind of focused on Southern Miss. But what did you think of the 4 new guys?
I've just been so happy about the direction of the conference because, like you had mentioned, I've been covering the league long enough. I covered the first media day in New Orleans, which was like 2012. So to kind of give folks an idea of how long ago that was, Mario Cristobal was coaching FIU. Gus Malzahn was coaching Arkansas State. And it was like the final remnants of North Texas, Western Kentucky. So to kind of give folks an idea of how much conference has grown, we'll start with that.
Yeah.
Sunbelt Media Day in 2012 was you were in downtown New Orleans. I think it was not the Sheraton. It was a different hotel downtown New Orleans, and you were in one essentially ballroom. And you had everybody there in one spot.
Yuck.
And it was just different times and different coaches and different players would come in every single time. And so to see it grow from that, and it was really kind of beat writers and literally a couple TV stations, and that was about it. So to see it grow from that to now this 14-team behemoth where it's logical and it all makes sense, where it's like, okay, it's a geographic footprint. You bring in teams, yes, that are from small college towns, but you've got some fan bases in them towns, in them regions. So bringing in a James Madison, a logical fit. You bring in a Southern Miss, and I covered the Golden Eagles a little bit when I was in Jackson, Mississippi for 4 years. So I was pleased as punch when I heard the Golden Eagles were coming through because they were essentially a Sun Belt school trapped in Conference USA. Old Dominion folks will probably tell you the same thing too. So just to see how much the conference has grown and it being, when I first covered the league, the belt wasn't also ran where it's essentially, if you didn't win the conference title, you were essentially in the wilderness.
Absolutely.
So now the fact you have 5 and 6 bowl bids still blows my mind to this day.
See, Shane, Chris is like the Sun Belt old man. who's
You're not lying. But kind of delving further with the new teams. I mean, the Dukes coming in, and I think I made this joke to TJ Eck, I think, who covers the Dukes. I said, y'all never have to worry about Flow Sports ever again. ESPN Plus is a lifesaver.
You have no idea how the vitriol of Flow Sports around here.
And the second I heard about it, and I was like, they really did this? Like, they really had a Flow Sports racket going on to, like, hose all these teams? I'm like, that's not cool. But then with the other teams joining with the East, James Madison's going to compete right away. I'm not really, like, the one wild card out of all the 4 that are coming in is Marshall. Because I could argue Marshall could win the East Division this year, and it wouldn't sound ridiculous.
No.
So of the 4, like, that's the one, like, Marshall could win the division year 1. That's the team I'm kind of looking at, like, how Georgia Southern came in the league right away and won it, and everybody's like, what just happened? Like, I can kind of see that with Marshall this year. Like, I think me and Logan were kind of going through the media poll, and we were kind of looking at it, like, who's ranked too high and who's ranked too low. And, like, Marshall's the one team I circled. I'm like, they could win the division, and it would not surprise me one bit.
Yeah, Shane.
Granted, the East is a bloodbath this year.
Shane and I were talking earlier about Marshall. You were talking about who was the team that was going to surprise us most in terms of the newbies. Shane made a good point. He was like, well, Marshall is won't surprise. The surprise for Marshall is if they're no good. But I think what the surprise from James Madison to me is one of those teams. That's the darkest horse of all. Do they have FBS speed and size to last the whole season? That's to me the big question. If they do, they're going to have a great season. If not, they're going to have to go back to the recruiting board and pick up that depth.
Yeah,
and they've kind of already started. Yeah, they've kind of already started like adding guys from the transfer portal. I mean, one that state fans are familiar with is Jarius Romanique, who played considerable minutes in the Sun Belt. So he already has that Sun Belt mileage. So he kind of already knows what the Dukes are going to be getting into this fall. So, seeing that, like, you're right, James Madison is another wild card where I've circled at least 3 teams in this league where I have no idea what they're going to do this year. James Madison is one of them. I have no idea. Like, they could go to a bowl game. Okay. They could have a losing season. Okay. I have no idea what they're going to do. Like, James Madison, I've kind of circled. I don't know with them. Southern Miss, I don't know, because they played everybody in creation at quarterback last year.
Absolutely.
So you don't know who they're going to have, but you have a coach in Will Hall who can build. So they're not going to be terrible, but we don't know how good they're going to be. So we don't know with them. So that's another team I've circled. And I think the third one is Old Dominion, where they're coming in from Conference USA. You have some name recognition there. They had some success in CUSA before coming over, but not too long ago, you had a COVID year, and ODU was one of the few D1 teams that didn't play.
Yeah,
so you're wondering how much you're coming back. It's essentially year 2 from that. So you're wondering, where are they? So those are the 3 programs in the conference I've kind of circled where I have no clue what they're going to do this year.
I'm with you on those 3. Big question marks for all 3 of those. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, in fact, Old Dominion, it's been a joke on this show, Chris. Now we know absolutely nothing. We're hoping Shane, with his proximity towards Old Dominion, could shed some light. He's like, I don't know who these guys are either. So it's gonna be a nice, thoughtful reveal once the season starts and we finally figure out who the Monarchs really are. Chris, we really
it's no problem. It's gonna be the most clueless I've ever been going to an Arkansas State conference opener. Like, you go to Old Dominion, I have no idea what's gonna happen.
What are you going to show us? Hope to God it's not a blowout situation. Chris, thanks for coming to the show. I know that you guys have been very busy up in Northeast Arkansas, covering all the high school programs, covering Arkansas State. We appreciate the coverage that Arkansas State gets, Chris, and we hope to have you on the show pretty soon.
No problem, guys. Thanks for having me on. You know where to find me, so I'm always happy to talk.
All right.
Any way I can.
All right. See you later, Hudg.
All right. Take care, y'all.
Okay, Dusty. So this has been a pretty big show. It's
always a big show.
Yeah. Well, it's always a big show, but this show has been extraordinarily big. We had Coach Angie Hind from Old Dominion talking a little bit about soccer, which has been great. That's coming up. We've had Coach Dustin Kerns from Appalachian State, not the defending Sunbelt champion, but a defending Sunbelt champion from 20.
He has a title.
Yeah, one of the best defensive teams I've ever seen in the Sunbelt.
Definitely.
And then we had our good friend Chris Hudginson from from KAIT in Jonesboro to discuss Red Wolves football. So this might be the most jam-packed with juicy information FunBelt podcast we've ever had, Dusty.
And once again, the East is dominating. Go figure.
Yeah, well, one day the West will pick up. I have hope for the West. So, Dusty, let us wrap this up with parting shots, maybe a plug. What do you call it, Dusty?
Plugs, promos, parting shots.
Oh, yeah, plugs, promos, parting shots, the 3 Ps. Dusty, what do you have for us?
My parting shot, traveling this week for my professional job. Mm-hmm. I hate United. And I can say that because they're not a sponsor. Leaving Houston to go to good old Laredo, Texas. Somehow they missed the weather map where there was a huge tropical depression over Laredo.
Yeah.
Diverted us to San Antonio. Tried again the next day after spending a night in a hotel. Couldn't get to Laredo. Wound up in Corpus Christi, Texas. Spent the night. Finally made it to Laredo, Texas. And then they didn't have a rental car for us.
Damn.
It's been one of those weeks, Jeremy. Been one of those weeks. Coach Kerns talks about the indigestion that he has.
Yeah.
That, he's having to drink beers to try to calm the nerves.
Yeah.
I don't think there's enough beer in the world for me to calm my nerves.
Well, don't descend into 12-step program territory just for some bad flight experience. I want you sharp for the season, Dusty.
We still got a couple weeks. I got it.
Oh man. Okay. Well, my parting shot is also a bit of a plug. Dusty, you're from the state of Texas, right? You live in Texas.
I live in Texas now.
Have you heard of the Global Classico?
No.
Well, you're about to. The Global Classico is a first ever cross-nation football matchup between two college football teams. We're going to see the Rams of Texas Wesleyan University. Wesleyan. Is it Wesleyan? Texas Wesleyan University. Take on the Red Wolves of Mexico. Does that sound weird to you? What?
Waiting for the punchline.
That's the punchline. The Red Wolves are playing on August 27th at the Classico, but it's the ASU CQ Red Wolves based in, I'm trying to say this right. I'm delaying it because I always get it wrong. Querétaro, maybe? Querétaro, Mexico. But Arkansas State has a campus in Mexico, Querétaro. They have a football team, and they're crossing the border on August 27th for the Global Classico. And I invite everybody to go check it out, Google it, find out what it's all about. It's going to be really cool. They're going to have a big concert afterwards. If you get your $10 ticket to go, it's being held in Texas. Go ahead and go see the concert. It's going to be a lot of sort of Latino kind of Mexican influence music. It's going to be a great time.
So does this team wear the red and black?
They do. They have their own take on the uniform. They have the red wolf on their helmets. They are known as the Red Wolves. They've been playing football for about 2 or 3 years now. I know almost nothing about the team. I know nothing really about the program. A guy named Gerardo Garduño, Coach Garduño is the coach. And I am looking forward to seeing this game. I'm hoping they stream it. I'm looking for streaming information, but it's something that if you are in the Fort Worth area, you should go check it out.
So Butch Jones is not pulling double duty on this game.
As far as I know, Butch Jones will not be in attendance at that game. He will still probably be deep into his man cave, drawing up plays for the opening night with Grambling. But if he did show up, I think that would be really cool. I think it would be really cool if maybe the entire Arkansas State team showed up. That would be great. A huge show of support for our brothers in Mexico.
Fantastic.
All right. So with that,
that's another episode, Jeremy.
I'm going to say adios.
Edit that out, Dusty.